Have you ever wondered how a brand new pair of stiff, dark jeans gets that perfectly faded, lived-in look right off the rack? Well, it's not magic. It's a really fascinating field of apparel engineering called dry processing. Today, we're going to go inside the factory and see how that raw denim gets transformed into a unique piece of fashion art, all before it ever even touches water. So let's pull back the curtain on the art and science of aging denim. So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off by defining what dry processing even is. Then we're going to get our hands dirty, so to speak, and explore how those classic fades and whiskers are made. After that, we'll look at the more aggressive methods for adding authentic wear and tear. Then we'll see how artisans actually sculpt the fabric with 3D effects. And finally, we'll put it all together and see the entire process flow. All right, first things first. What in the world is dry processing? Let's break down this foundational concept. Okay, so at its core, the denim dry process is all about mechanical abrasion. Just think of it like a whole set of artistic tools used to distress and age a garment before any washing happens. The entire goal is aesthetic. It's about adding character and that fashion value to what is basically a blank canvas of raw denim. You're creating a story of wear before it's ever actually been worn. Now let's get into what is probably the most recognizable part of that aging process, creating those surface-level fades and crease marks that we all know as whiskers. The traditional method for this is a true craft, you know? An artist will first mark a whisker design, and then they'll engrave it onto a rubber board. That board is then slipped right into the thigh or knee area of the jeans, and by scraping abrasive paper over the fabric that's being pushed up by that pattern, they manually create those really distinct faded lines. It's all done by hand. And this is not just some random sanding either. There's a real science to it. Just look at the precision we're talking about here. Engineers have to choose a super specific grade of abrasive paper, and it all depends on how tough the fabric is. So for a heavy, hard denim, they're going to grab the really rough P400 grit. But for a softer fabric, no way. They have to use the much finer P1000 grade to get that perfect fade without just tearing up the material. Of course, technology has an alternative. While that manual method relies on a skilled artisan's hand for a soft, kind of unique finish, laser technology automates the whole thing. A CO2 laser literally burns a digital design right onto the fabric. It's incredibly precise, you can repeat it perfectly every time. But it works a little differently. The laser is often used after an initial wash, and then the jeans have to be washed again to get rid of the burnt indigo and reveal the pattern. So creating fades is one thing. But to get that really authentic, lived-in look, you have to add some physical texture. And that is where the more intense techniques of grinding and destroying come into play. Grinding is all about faking that natural fraying that happens over years and years of use. Operators use a grinding machine, which is basically a high-speed tool with a small stone on the tip to carefully wear down the edges of pockets, the hems at the ankles, and the waistband. It's a very targeted process, and it's all designed to make those jeans look well-loved from day one. Now, the destroy process, that takes it a step further. And you need a whole toolkit for that. You've got your power tools, yeah? Like pen grinders and wheels for controlled damage. But it also comes down to the simple, almost surgical precision of hand tools, like needles and knives. It's that mix of raw power and delicate handiwork that creates those perfect imperfections. And here's where the real artistry comes in. This isn't just about ripping holes in stuff. A skilled operator will meticulously cut or grind away the indigo-dyed warp yarns. Those are the ones that run vertically, while very carefully leaving the white weft yarns that run horizontally. That is how they get that iconic look of white threads stretched across a hole, which is just the hallmark of great distressed denim. All right, so we've scraped and distressed the surface. Now let's talk about adding another dimension, literally. We're going to see how denim gets sculpted, changing it from a flat piece of fabric into something with a permanent, three-dimensional shape. So what's the secret to permanent wrinkles? It's chemistry. There's a process called 3D crinkling, and it involves applying a special resin to the jeans. What this resin does is it creates these little chemical bridges or crosslinks inside the cotton fibers. So after the garment is creased up and then cured with heat, these bonds lock the folds right into place. It prevents the fabric from ever going back to being flat. It's pretty cool. And the sheer variety of tools and techniques they have to get this effect is just incredible. I mean, engineers can use everything from high-tech heat-setting machines and automated spray cabinets to really simple manual methods like just tying the garment with thread or using clips to hold creases before they bake it. There are even chemical-free options that just use mechanical force. To really get the range of possibilities here, let's just compare two totally different approaches. So, a heat-setting machine applies resin and then uses a hot press to bake in these really sharp, defined creases. But on the other hand, you have a 3D bendable leg, which is a purely mechanical process. It's basically an inflatable form that uses compressed air to create much softer, more organic-looking wrinkles with no chemicals at all. Okay, we've looked at all these individual techniques on their own. Now, let's zoom out and see how they all fit together in a real production line. So it all starts with that raw, untreated garment. The first steps are almost always the surface level stuff, like the whiskering and hand scraping. That's followed by the more intense grinding and destroying processes. After that, if the design needs it, the 3D resin is applied and the garment is shaped. Then everything is locked in place during the curing stage in a huge oven. Only then, after all that's done, does the garment finally move on to the wet processing and the final finishing touches. And that brings us to our final thought for today. We've seen this incredible mix of manual artistry and high-tech industry. But as automation like laser etching gets more and more sophisticated and sustainable, it kind of raises a big question. Which of these really skilled, hands-on techniques will survive as a signature of true craftsmanship, and which ones will just be replaced by the cold precision of a machine? The future of your favorite pair of jeans? Well, it's still being written.